This is a room full of Ruby VIP people and wonderful Rubyists. So I'm very humbled to be on the stage, so thank you for having me. The original title of this talk was how to build a business on Rails and open source, but there's no recipe for that, so I'm going to tell you how I built a business on Rails and open source. My name is Adrian. I am a self-taught engineer. That means I didn't go to computer science school. I'm product-oriented, which means that I don't like to do only development, but a little bit of design, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of checking what others are doing, and taking all that information and putting it inside my product to deliver the most value. You'll find me as Adrian the Dev on Twitter, GitHub, and pretty much everywhere else. Avo has been my main job for the past 3.5 years. I co-host a boutique conference in Bucharest, Romania. And in my free time, I also record a podcast with my friend Yaro from Super Rails. We're not very professional, but we have great guests, and sometimes we're funny. For those of you who don't know what Avo is, it's a very advanced content management system / admin panel / internal tool builder for Ruby on Rails. So it helps developers build CRUD-like applications really, really fast. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Avo and how it came to be, because it makes sense in the grand scheme of things. And then I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to give a few tips and tricks and see what I did right and maybe what I did wrong and what you maybe should not do the same. One question I always get is how I got to build Avo. And also, for the English-speaking people, it's pronounced Avo, not Avo. It comes from avocado, but I couldn't find any domain names or username, so I just slashed it. So how did it all start? It's not a novel idea. I come from PHP and Laravel since back in the day, and for one of my past gigs, I used something called Laravel Nova, which was an admin panel framework for Laravel, and it helped us build a new division inside the company in just a few months, because I was able to deploy the internal tools really, really fast with this. And I could focus on the more important aspects of the app and deliver value very fast. And I already knew Rails, I already worked with it, and I knew that Rails was super fast. You can build apps very fast with it. So if we had something like this for Rails, then it would be just the greatest framework of all time. So I got digging, and I found out there were a couple of alternatives out there. I'm talking about ActiveAdmin, Rails Admin, Trestle, Administrate, and others. But they all had their disadvantages. And me talking about the disadvantages, this is not me bashing those tools. They were here before Avo, before Nova. They were built with different technologies and probably different goals in mind. So I'm very thankful for them for setting out the groundwork. But going back to the current alternatives, they felt a little bit unpolished. Some were unmaintained, difficult to extend, and the developer experience was not great. So there was room for improvement. So I got started. The first commit was, I didn't aim to build a business. I just, frankly, wanted to see if I could build it. So I started in spring of 2020, the pandemic. I worked throughout the spring and the summer. It was a side project on my weekends. And in, I think, August, I had a gem file. And I started speaking to people, telling people about it. Just look at this conversation I had with a friend. But it's super easy to use. Just follow the docs. I was so naive. I just thought it was so simple. So I was that guy that built something cool, and I was wondering, like, why doesn't everybody want to use it for every app? So the next couple of months went from me telling people about the app to me begging people to use the app. And I was wondering, why don't they want to use it? And most people, I had conversations with them, and they were telling me things like, nobody's paying for this, this is never going to work, or I have ActiveAdmin and that's free, why would I pay for your thing? Or plain simply, oh, so this is like PHP MyAdmin. I was frustrated. They didn't understand my tool. This isn't a tool that you can build a half-assed, ugly, nobody uses admin panel. This is something that the whole team should use productively. It should look good, it should work right, it should support advanced use cases, and it should be ready to deploy to consumers from day one. So I kept pushing. I I hold on to every piece of promotion that I could without being spammy or sleazy. For example, Planet Ruby had an Advent gem calendar where they would highlight one gem every day in December. Day 15 was for Avo. Jason Charnes once posted that they have nothing to talk about on the podcast, and I told him about Avo, and he gave it a shout out. When somebody was on Twitter saying something like, who's building something cool with Ruby? I was there telling them about Avo. I reached out to about 10 or 15 podcast hosts, asking them to have me on, like, okay, I can tell the people about Avo. Very few panned out. Jason Sweat was actually one of the first big Ruby podcasts that had me on, and I always thank him for that. So this is a call to action. If you're somebody important and you have influence in the community and you're seeing somebody build something cool and being passionate about it, just help them, promote their stuff. They'll forever thank you for that. Some time passed by. DHH launched Hotwire in December of 2020. It was this cool new way of building front-end UIs for Rails. I was a little bit hesitant of changing my Vue.js single-page application project to Hotwire because it was something new. But don't worry, not even a week after that announcement, some random person on Twitter came on to me and told me, I will never use your tool because it doesn't use Hotwire. Hotwire is the hot new thing, and I will only use Hotwire from now on. So guess what? I said to myself, I will show that person online, that random person, that wouldn't pay $100 for my tool, that I can do it. I will rewrite it. I will make it all with Hotwire. And I did exactly that. I took a month off of my stable job to go rewrite my side project. So a month off of my stable job to rewrite my side project. And it was 3.5 years ago. He's somewhere in this photo. We were going to get a beer 3 years later after that initial conversation. This is Rails World in Amsterdam. I'm not going to say who it is. Avo was probably one of the first medium-sized open source projects that used Hotwire in its entirety since just maybe 3 months after launch. After version 1 came out, after a few months, we had our first paying customer. Then in the next year, I almost abandoned the project. I chased the venture capital dream. That didn't pan out for me, but Avo started getting some traction. People starting using it, people starting buying it, requesting features without me doing almost anything. And then I thought to myself, like, if they are using it, if they want it, maybe this fixes a problem. So maybe I should work some more on it. End of 2021, I made $4,000, enough to pay my taxes and my accountant. Then I did a little bit more work on it. I built some more features that I planned. I launched version 2 with a subscription model. The next 2 years set the tone for one release every 2 weeks and me wanting to bring a substantial improvement every release and still wanting Avo to become popular in the community. But these years were grueling for me. I was always wondering if I'm doing the right thing. Should I get a job? I could be making so much money. Am I wasting my time? Am I hurting my family in the process? They say that the second most important decision in your life is choosing your co-founder in your startup, because the most important one is choosing your partner in life. So I thank my wife every day for believing in me. Even the past year when I toured conferences, she stayed home taking care of our baby. I had a few calls and conversation with Mike Burham. He said the same thing. Just go out there and provide value and continue. He said, use your strengths to your advantage. And he was talking about me living in Eastern Europe and having a lower cost of living. So then I would have a much bigger runway than any competitor from the USA. And I did just that. He was right. I lived on a reduced income and off of my savings until my product took off. Sometimes I just wanted to quit. But then I had a sale, and then another sale. And then I had the best month, and then another best month. When you're in this thing building a business like this, it's not like watching a graph of your monthly recurring revenue going up. I mean, you can do that, but it's not the same. It's difficult to see the patterns and the growth. We started getting fans. We started getting evangelists, people coming and saying, oh my God, I love the framework. It helped us so much. It brought so much value. So that gave me hope. This is how I met Paul. He was working for a company that was using Avo. We started chatting in English, of course. He told me about the way he hacked it, the new features that he would love to have, and gave me feedback on it. And after a bit of research, I figured out he's originally from Romania as well, just like me. Who would have thought? And then at one point, he told me that he is looking for another part-time job. And I said, like, oh my God, that's amazing. Why don't you come and work for Avo? Like, I cannot pay a full-time salary, but maybe I could pay like a part-time thing. So back then I had a customer, my biggest customer was paying me $500 per month to be on his Slack channel and on his GitHub repo so I can take care of some Avo code. And I took most of that money, I gave it to Paul, and that's the story of the first Avo employee. It doesn't sound glamorous at all. It sounds like a struggling story. And it kind of is. But it's also a story about resilience. I did what I had to do to keep my product going. End of 2022, we made $24,000. It was the ramen profitability level we wanted. It was a shit salary, but I was doing the work that I loved. I had my own product and the freedom that I wanted. In the development area, we were banging out features and enhancements like crazy, and we still do. We are present on Discord and GitHub and showing a lot of support for everybody. In 2023, we launched Avo 3, where we extended some APIs to support some more use cases, and that's when Paul became a full-time employee. He took even more engineering work off of my plate so I can focus more on sales and marketing. End of 2023, we made $64,000, enough to cover 2 lousy salaries. But again, we were making an impact. We were providing value and building a business in the process. I started touring conferences, speaking and attending. This led me to host my own conference in Bucharest. The tour was not just for me to talk about my product, but for me to understand and connect with my community. These are the people, and I did just that. I made a lot of friends that I see in this room tonight. So I thank my wife, I thanked my community, but there's one unsung hero that I didn't thank yet, and that is Rails. Avo wouldn't be here if Rails wasn't the way it is, if Rails didn't have its conventions. This is how Avo knows how to talk to the database, how to inject into the lifecycle, request lifecycle, how to serve assets, build API endpoints, and more through engines. So thank you, Rails, for making my job easier. Now, we're 3 engineers, with Gabriel being the second junior Ruby developer we hired after Paul. We have a very respectable 4-figure MRR. We have about 200 customers, paying customers, and a clear path forward. We've seen people build Shopify alternatives on Avo, learning management systems, security, fintech, and inventory apps, property management systems, entire healthcare CRMs built on Avo, and more consumer-facing applications. The market showed that Rails is a mature enough environment to support something like this. So I told you about the story of Avo, of how it came to be, but I did it the hard way. So let's do an exercise together and try to see how it kind of should be done. In preparation for this talk, I asked people, like, what would you like to know about my story? And most people said, I want to know how you get started and when to go from a part-time involvement to a full-time involvement. So let's take it one step at a time. First, you have to have an idea. But instead of thinking of it like having an idea, try to identify a problem. Okay? That problem ideally should be painful, because the product you make is going to be either a painkiller or a vitamin. So people would pay anything to get a pain away, but they might skimp on the vitamins. It's the same with software. For you, it's going to take the same amount of effort to build it, but they might not value it as much. If you don't know what to build, it's okay. Just think about things you wished existed. You're the expert of that problem. Go find potential customers and speak to them. Your family and friends, they don't count. I recommend this book, which will tell you exactly that and more, and how to be a great interviewer. It's because your family and friends, they don't want to disappoint you. And you'll be telling them about your idea, and they'll say, oh my God, that's great. Go and build it. You're going to be so rich. That's amazing. but they don't have that problem. The best feedback comes from the people that have that problem that you're trying to solve. Now that you have an idea, you go build an MVP. The MVP is the simplest thing that you can build to solve a bit of your problem. It could even have a lot of manual processes. The MVP should give you the idea, it should give you the best feedback if you should continue with your product or not. You should start small, very, very small. You don't need fancy CI/CD systems. You don't need fancy automation, a fancy design. It's okay. If the thing is solving the problem for the users, they'll even click 3 times if they have to. You'll figure that out later. Did I do this right? Not really. I just built it like hoping they will come. I kind of knew that that was that other product that people were paying for, so I said, Rails people will pay it. So I did it the hard way, and I don't recommend it. Now it's time to go and find users. My big mistake was that I thought that my product is so great that people would just come in, and they didn't. And they won't come for you either. So you should go out there and tell people about your product. This is a famous tweet from Daniel Vassallo, and I think all of us have fallen into this trap. Like in the top part, you'll find all the things that you don't need to build an app, but all of us developers do, like dark mode and favicon and whatever. And then the bottom part is actually what you have to do to launch, is bring attention to your product. So if you did research on the problem, you should kind of know where the potential customers are. It's going to be difficult to approach them, but you should kind of know where they are. Now that you have some users, listen to them. They'll tell you what needs improved. They'll tell you what you need to add, what you need to remove, what's extra. It helps you iterate fast on your product. What's the best indicator that your product is solving a problem? Money. Yes, the dirty word. So paying customers is the best indicator that your product is taking off. So start charging as soon as possible. As soon as you have some traction and as soon as the product really delivers, try to increase your prices to reflect that value. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a leap of faith. Think about it like that, because this is how you really validate that your product is solving a problem and you're not wasting your time. Did we do this right? I think we did. Like, we had a price on it from day one. We increased the prices last year. We're running some experiments this year, so we'll figure it out. Make a reasonable roadmap and try to stick with it. When I started out, I kind of knew where Avo should be in 2 and 3 years. We kind of are there, and so might you. But how you get there, that's a different story. We tend to look at the big companies, how they set roadmaps for 6 months, 6 years, and they stick to them and whatever, and we try to do the same as bootstrap developers, but we're not them. You're not them. That strategy might not work out for you. So build what you need right now. It's okay not to be very strict. If you plan to build features A, B, and C in that order, but your customer needs feature C, go build that. Providing value to your customer, that's the most important thing. You'll figure A and B later. Our friends from UserList have this amazing slogan, better done than perfect. So when somebody asks me how to get started, I just tell them, do a Rails new and deploy from day one. You're going to have a blank page, but you're going to write some code today and deploy. You're going to write some code tomorrow and deploy, and the next day, and the next day, and by the time you know it, you're going to have something of value, and it's public. You can show people. If you're building something locally and in the dark, that project will probably never, you want it to be perfect and respecting for that time, that project will probably never see the light of day. So just put it out there. Show up and show you care. So when we get a new issue on GitHub, even if we don't have time to work on that, we go there and we usually say like, okay, I saw this, I will investigate next week or whatever. It's okay. So that shows that there's somebody on the other side, right? Somebody that cares, somebody that acknowledges the problem. Show yourself and your personality. Developers, especially, they don't like to work with robots. They want to see who you are, how you talk, and how you generally take care of things. So they like to see a friendly face. I did it the hard way. I just dropped my job and went full-time on this thing. Again, I don't recommend it. You might work on a side project, and at some point, it might support you full-time, and that's amazing. And when that happens, go and tell everyone. Your customers and potential customers, they want to know that the most important thing that you do professionally is this thing right here. Branding is important. We are developers. We like to throw some bootstrap on it and call it design. Like, if your product, is amazing, your site doesn't have to look like black and white or designed like it was designed by a drunken monkey. Branding is very important. As soon as you have a couple of $100 or a designer friend, ask for their help. Having a nice logo, having the same colors, having a consistent language, that really matters. It shows you cared. You're gonna have to do marketing. I know it sounds scary because it's the dirty thing to do. But the only way your customers are going to find out about your product is if you tell them. And if you don't talk about your product, who will? So ideally, you want to build a funnel where on the top, people discover your product, then they analyze the product, and then they decide to buy your product. And ideally, that funnel should have like a tiny knob where you put more money into that funnel, and then you have more customers at the other end. Did I do this wrong? No, I hate this shit. But I'll probably have to do it at some point. When I see somebody cool building something nice online, I go and talk to them. I get on a call. I want to see how they think, what motivates them. And you should do the same, especially if you think that person is going to help you. You go and ask questions, and you'll be amazed because they'll tell you everything. This especially helps if you go to events, conferences like this one. Go to meetups. This kind of events cement the friendships you make online. These create that networking effect that everybody's talking about. These are the people that are going to recommend or buy our product. It's definitely easier to buy from Adrian, with whom I had a great time at Tropical, than some random dude in Eastern Europe. Last year, I've been to about 10 events. I have a 6 planned this year, so you should do the same. If I didn't speak to Mike Perham, to Jason, and other people in the community, I probably wouldn't have been here. So pay it forward and share your story when you made it. Go and speak at conferences, at meetups, write blog posts, help others in need, show your successes and your failures. The trust you build will trickle down into your business. You're gonna have to do a lot of things. This is not your 9-to-5 job where you close your laptop and then you go hang out with your family and friends. Marketing is hard if you've never done it. Sales is hard if you've never done it. Design is hard if you've never done it. It's a lot of work building something of value, but showing up every day is the only way to do it. We, again, as developers, try to think that every decision is rational, but from time to time, you're gonna have to listen to your gut. Don't try to emulate what 5-year-old or 10-year-old startups are doing right now. You're not in the same place. Maybe you should check out what they did when they were like you. One of the things that I did wrong is take things personally. At times, people come on our Discord server or on a GitHub account and they start ranting about Avo doesn't do that, or it's missing this or that or whatever. And I would get so frustrated and get defensive, like, what do you mean you don't like it? Like, whatever. But I failed to read between the lines and actually see the caveats and the problems. And then after a while, I started taking down like, okay, this is wrong, I have to fix it, I have to fix it. So this is the same advice I want to give to you. Don't get defensive and don't take things personally. Pricing is hard. It's very hard, especially if you want to take care of the little guy. Some companies, they just throw an X amount of dollars per user per month and an enterprise plan and be done with it. We still haven't found the right pricing and we're still working on it. It's not fair that a company that makes $10, $50, $100,000 per year from your product pay the same like a company that makes millions. And that distinction is usually difficult to make with just features. But seriously, if there's one thing you should take from this talk, is that you have the power to build the product and the business that you want. But also, you have the power to not do it. Execution is the best advice. The opposite of execution is to wander. The opposite of execution is to delay, is to doubt, and it's to not ship. So not executing is the biggest mistake you can make. So go out there and ship something people want. Obrigado.